Real Madrid are famed for many things: trophies, attacking football, demanding fans, an impatient board, and even black magic. But one thing they're not well known for is good defense. Why is that? Without wanting to generalize too much, one could reasonably say that a lot of the reasons for Madrid's shaky defensive reputation have revolved around their tactical decisions in attack. That sounds counterintuitive, but it is important to remember that offense and defense are not separate entities. They are two linked phases of the game that constantly influence each other. To understand why Real Madrid generally struggles defensively, you have to look at their scheme from a holistic perspective. For example, if you choose to defend with your wingers tucked deep and your striker marking your midfielder, you will find it difficult to counterattack because you have no outlets up front. If you choose to dominate possession and spend a lot of time in the opposition's half, you leave space behind you and must find another way to cover yourself defensively. Managers like Pep Guardiola often protect this gap by asking their teams to stay high up the pitch to counterpress. This requires a lot of organization in possession and cohesiveness off the ball, so that everyone is prepared to retain possession once the ball is lost. All zones of the pitch have to be guarded beforehand because transition situations occur within seconds. This is where Real Madrid have been lacking for a lot of their modern history. In the middle of the first Galactico era, Real Madrid packed tons of attacking talent into their midfield and expected to overwhelm opponents through their sheer offensive quality. Players like Zinedine Zidane, David Beckham, and Guti were offered incredible amounts of freedom with the ball. This fluid setup produced competent offense, but left Real Madrid horribly exposed whenever they lost possession. Many point to the loss of destroyer Claude Makélélé as a big reason for the aforementioned defensive ineptitude. While he played a big role in protecting the backline, the 2006-2007 season and 2014-2015 season have proven that it's not just about personnel. In 2006, the pragmatic Fabio Capello became Real Madrid's coach. He structured his team in a 4-4-2 and played two extremely defensive midfielders in his double pivot, Mahamadou Diarra and Emerson. He even had Ballon d'Or winner Fabio Cannavaro anchoring his back four. Despite the drastic lineup switch, Real still got carved apart on the counter. This was because Capello, as dictated by Real Madrid's ethos, continued to ask his team to play on the front foot. This created a contradiction between his style and the team selection. Diarra and Emerson had little ability to control the game, meaning that Madrid constantly lost the ball in situations that seriously exposed the space behind the post-prime Mikel Salgado and Roberto Carlos. In the 2014-2015 season, the midfield under Carlo Ancelotti was the exact opposite, containing attacking midfielder James Rodriguez and Luka Modric as interiors and Toni Kroos as a single pivot. That team conceded less league goals than Capello's side and recorded Madrid's second-best defensive expected goal figure over the last 5 seasons. That sounds crazy until you look at Ancelotti's tactical setup. He implemented an organized offense that prevented opportunities through sheer control. When Madrid lost the ball, they were able to quickly transition from their more structured possession play to a solid defensive shape. Though prior coach Jose Mourinho put less emphasis on possession and control, his semi-structured plan in attack similarly allowed for an ability to quickly transition to a defensive shape when the ball was lost. The 2016-2017 season seems to be the lone exception to this rule. While Real Madrid's offense became increasingly fluid and free that season, especially in the 4-4-2 diamond, they actually recorded better defensive expected goal numbers than the 14-15 season. This is made even more curious by the fact that Madrid's defensive schematics were erratic, especially in regards to their pressing. Only when looking at Casemiro's and Luka Modric's superhuman contributions does one begin to understand how the back four was protected. Casemiro, as many are aware, constantly protected the space behind Marcelo whenever opposing teams countered. What is less acknowledged is that Modric did the same on the right-hand side, to the point that he looked more like a two-way winger than a central midfielder. The defensive numbers in the 16-17 season weren't meant to last, as in the 17-18 season, Real Madrid's diamond was repeatedly cut to pieces. Even when Zidane moved back to his old 4-3-3 formation, the defending looked suspect. Part of this was thanks to Modric slowing down a little bit, though the Croatian was still brilliant in covering holes, but also because Zidane kept utilizing an extremely fluid offense. With everyone moving wherever they pleased, it became difficult to counter-press effectively, and confusion ensued. New coach Santiago Solari has found himself struggling with this same issue this season. More than any manager before him, he has looked to introduce a rigid structure in possession, so rigid in fact that Madrid struggled to get past the opposition's press. In response, he's tried going to the other extreme by making his offense extremely fluid. Predictably, Madrid have lacked the ability to prevent counterattacks in those instances. And therein lies the issues with Madrid's defense in the 21st century. Time after time, managers have struggled to balance the desire for offensive freedom with a structured possession plan that allows for quick transitions to a defensive block or good counter-pressing. However, Carlo Ancelotti, Jose Mourinho, and Zinedine Zidane have shown that a magical balance does exist, even if it's only fleeting. Thanks for watching this week's School of Real Madrid video. If you like our work, please consider supporting us through our Patreon, and be sure to follow us on all our social media channels.